It could easily, a few of them fall to round 3, and you end up being right when you only have 5 quarterbacks drafted in the first 2 rounds. I think it could happen, but I'm pretty confident that we'll at least see the big 4 drafted in those first 2, and probably one of the, and Ponder I think is definitely going to slip in there as well. So with those 5, I'll take my shot that Kaepernick or Dalton are get over drafted and taken in the second round.
I can promise you this, if only 2 quarterbacks go in the first round, I'm going to be blowing it all up on Twitter, and I maybe apologize on Friday night halfway through round 2 if there's like 3 or 4 guys taking in the first 10 of the second round. We'll go on to my most confident answer, and it's actually a question I kind of came up with myself, and I really like this question. Not just because I came up with it, I just thought it was interesting, but I risked my 25 points on the question, will Jake Locker, Andy Dalton, or Ryan Mallett be available after pick 42? I think that one of these guys is going to fall. I don't know who it's going to be. I mean, I've heard Phil Simms say that if Ryan Mallett isn't a top 10 pick, he doesn't know what he's doing and he'll quit his job. I've heard other people say, Brian Billick on Dan Patrick's show yesterday said that for him, Ryan Mallett is a third-round guy. So Andy Dalton, you know, he was a guy that a couple weeks ago was a second, third-round pick. Now people are saying he may go as high as number 8 in Tennessee. I just think there's so much smoke being blown around right now. People just, you know, saying so many things. And the character concerns with Ryan Mallett, even though the kid has a rocket arm. I think that one of these guys, Locker, Dalton, or Mallett, will slip below pick number 42. I especially think if guys like Colt and Colt McCoy last year fell below this spot, I think it's very easy to think that one of these guys would. So my most confident answer I put was that one of these guys will be available after pick 42. And Joe, we'll start with you this time. It looks like you did agree with me, and you actually went to your 22. Which guy do you think it is, Joe? Is it hard to say, or you just think that, like me, one of these guys has to fall at some point?
It's Dalton in my mind, because he's the one that I saw that is the weak link in this chain. And I'm not trying to be a jerk to the ginger here, but he just doesn't have the arm strength. He has the intelligence. He's a good, crafty decision maker, but I don't like the arm. I think it's a pea shooter, and I'm not trying to be too hurtful here, but I think past 50 is what he should be available, and I don't buy at all the fact that some people think he may be a first. If a team takes him in the first round, they're making a very poor decision on a player that they could have gotten much later. And maybe I'm wrong, but I just don't see how he fits into a first round conversation, much less the second round. When I think there's a number of quarterbacks that I'd rather take the chance on in the second round. Ponder, Kaepernick. We're talking about project guys that you could wait on. If you're taking a second round QB, I think there's other options. So he's the reason why I really felt comfortable taking that many points on this question.
So I think it might be Mallett, even though I don't agree with it. Is the guy I think it's Liv Joe sounds like he needs to fly to Vegas tomorrow and place a bet, because I believe right now Andy Dalton over under pick right now is listed about 28.5. So there's the Vegas has him right now, right around the end of the first round. Shane, you agreed with me as well. You said that one of these guys will be available after pick 42. Didn't risk as many points. You risked 13. Which guy do you think it is? Can you pinpoint it, or do you just kind of think like me? Somebody's got to fall out of those 3 guys below 42.
I don't think it'll be Jake Locker. I think he's going around 1. But I could easily see Andy Dalton and Ryan Mallett both available after pick 42 and kind of being later second-round picks before someone actually takes a shot on the character concerns with Mallett. Someone takes a shot with kind of consistency with Andy Dalton and hope that somehow he can be a franchise quarterback. But I definitely think one of those guys will be available in the middle of the second round. So 42 for me was a little bit too early for my taste to not pull the trigger. But, all this talk of Dalton going round 1 and Mallett going round 1, I couldn't wager too much on it. I only went 13 because I'll be honest, I'm a little afraid.
All right, now, Scott, you were the least of the 3 of us, at least. You went with just 7 points here, but you did agree with us all that one of these 3 guys will be available after 42. Who do you see slipping past that 42 spot? 1, 2, or all 3?
I definitely don't think it's me, Dalton. Ironically, I think he's probably the safest of the bunch to be gone before 42. Now, I don't agree with that. I have him graded as a 4th-round pick, but hey, I mean, crazy things have happened on draft day. It sure looks like Dalton's going at the very latest, early round 2, and there's a very good chance he goes late round 1. So I think Ryan Mallett is definitely the most likely. There's a lot of stuff circulating out there. You talk about smoke, but there's fire behind that smoke. There is plenty of fire, and he admitted it to the team. It's not like it's just rumors, it's speculation. A lot of the stuff has been true, and he admitted as much. And the thing is, for as talented as he is, he's a quarterback, and intangibles are much, much, much more important at that position than any other. And that's just the way it is. I mean, if he was a cornerback or a running back and had these same issues, teams are going to be a lot likely to forgive it. Look at Jimmy Smith from Colorado. He's going to slip a little, but he's still going in the first round. There's no question about that. And his issues are probably even more serious than Mallett's. But the quarterback, this guy has to be the leader of the team. He has to be the guy everyone respects. Everything he does, both good and bad, is going to be front-page headlines, and he's going to drop. In my final mock draft, which I'm working on right now, I actually have him dropping to the Oakland Raiders at 48.
So you got him flipping. Wow. Joe, we're going to move on to your most confident question, and this was one that I actually I can't get a handle on at all, and I actually think I only risked 9 points on this one, but you made it your most important question, risking a 25 on it, and that was whether or not Cam Newton would be drafted over or under pick 1.5. And guys, if you're not familiar with gambling, when we talk about over or under a pick number, if you say over 1.5, that's going to be 2 or higher. If you say under, that's obviously only going to be 1, the only number under 1.5. So, Joe, you think that it's a slam dunk lock that Cam Newton's going number 1? Do you think it's going to Carolina? You think it's a trade? What makes you so confident? Because I have no clue who's going number 1 at all, and I don't think it should be Cam Newton. But again, this isn't a test to see what we think should happen. It's a test to think what we think will actually happen. And you've kind of been a draft expert here, nailing picks over the last couple of years. But what are you looking? What makes you so confident that Cam's going number 1?
Just the simple fact that he sells jerseys. He is the apple of many people's eyes, and also just the people in that area. They're going to buy some Cam Newton jerseys. They're going to buy some tickets just to see what happens. Is it the right pick? No. I wouldn't get behind the pick at all. If I was GM, I'd make a completely different pick, but that is besides the point. If people actually tuned in to know what I think, then we'd have a much smaller listener base. The bottom line is, I just think this guy is the most polarizing figure in the entire draft. What does Carolina need to do? They need to make a huge change, go in a new direction. And honestly, you look at quarterbacks that are projects, and how do you make it work? You supply that quarterback with a terrific running game. And what does Carolina have? A bevy of backs with a talented offensive line. It could work. So I think that's why they go with the pick. And also there's a lot of pressure on them to take him. And once again, it's compounded with the fact that no one wants to trade up at 1 on this year, especially with the lack of luck in this whole scenario. I think that they're stuck at that pick, and that's what they're going to make.
All right, so actually Scott was in pretty good agreement with you. He actually made this the second most confident question, risking 24 points that Cam Newton will be the first. I'm sorry, not Scott. It was actually Shane going with 24 points that Cam Newton would be drafted under pick 1.5. So Shane, you're pretty confident as well that Cam Newton, right or wrong, is going to be the first pick tomorrow night.
Yeah, but I'm with Joe, and I think it's the wrong pick. I think it's going to be a huge detriment to this franchise, but it's going to happen, so I might as well get the points while I can.
All right, well, Scott, you went with 17 here, so not your most confident, but still pretty confident that Cam Newton's going to be the number 1 pick, right or wrong. Looks like you're in agreement with these guys.
Yeah, I'm a little more confident now as we're close to the draft, although I hedge my bets a little bit just because I still have a hard time fathoming that a team would be that stupid. But like you said, it's what we think the teams are going to do, not necessarily what we would do. And it's going to be fun watching this because Cam Newton is going to flame out, and he's going to do it in a big, bad public way. It's going to be a circus in Carolina for the next 5 years.
Well, I actually am looking at my answers here, and I actually said over. I actually am going to take, I guess, the contrarian approach here. It looks good for my point totals that I'm constantly going against the 3, quote, experts that we have on the show tonight with Scott, Shane, and Joe. But I actually said he's not going to be the first pick. Only risked 9 points on it, but the fact that Joe has 25 points to gain and I have just 9 to lose, if it swings the other way, that's about a 34-point swing for me if Cam is not the first pick. So I don't know. I guess for me, I just look at the fact that if people, and I keep hearing this, I don't know if Michael Lombardi coined it, but I always hear him talk about these blue chippers. And listening to Brian Billick talk yesterday, he feels like there's 3 blue chippers in this draft: Marcell Dareus, Patrick Peterson, and Von Miller. Cam Newton's not mentioned in any 3 of those, and I'm like, I just don't understand how a team, regardless of what Cam Newton could turn into, if you feel like Von Miller is can't miss, if you feel like Patrick Peterson is can't miss, I know people say you can't take a cornerback number 1. Why not? If he's the best player, if he's a true guy that can come out there on day 1, start for your team, and make a huge difference, why not take a guy like that? Joe, why would Carolina not take a Von Miller, a Patrick Peterson, or a Marcell Dareus? They could probably use any of the 3 more than they could use Cam Newton and give Clausen 1 more year to develop. And who knows, maybe they'll have the number 1 pick next year and they can take Andrew Luck.
Well, and just to compound this whole thing again, why not take my other blue chipper, which would be A.J. Green, my top player on the board? No, they don't need wide receiver, but if you're talking about developing Boston, Jared, why not throw A.J. Green into the mix with Steve Smith, David Geddes, and who knows what you're going to get out of Brandon LaFell. And by the way, talking about Carolina being a smart franchise or not, this is the same team that traded a second-rounder for Monty Edwards, which it looks like they're not going to get anything out of. So I wouldn't argue there at all. I mean, like, why not take a Von Miller or get what you know you can get? But, I mean, yeah, if it's my pick and, you know, I've got to do what I want, I'd just draft A.J. Green and not look back.
All right, Scott, I see you got a comment for us. What you got, man?
Yeah, and the reason Carolina's going to do it is because they're a bad franchise. You know, I mean, and that's what it boils down to, and that's why they're in this position with the number 1 overall pick. Bad franchises give Jake Delhomme huge contract extensions when he's coming off just an abysmal game in the playoffs. Bad franchises give up on their top pick less than 12 months after making it. Bad franchises let Julius Peppers, one of the future Hall of Famer, maybe at a premium position, go and get absolutely nothing in return. And bad franchises take Cam Newton with the number 1 overall pick in the draft. That's what it boils down to.
All right, well, we're going to move on to some of our more questions. I'm trying to find somewhere we're in a little bit of a disagreement. I found a spot where I agree with 2 of the experts, and one of the experts disagrees with us, but didn't put a lot of points on it. But, Scott, you and I both are pretty confident that there will be over 11.5 offensive players selected in the first round. Joe went over as well, but only risked 2 points. Shane went under, only risking 6 points. Scott, this was an easy one for me because I really feel like I looked at 3 or 4 different mock drafts, and, you know, a lot of them, you know, I think the least draft that I had 13 offensive players going in the first round. That really gets to be a bit of a crapshoot at the end of the first round, whenever you talk about guys sneaking up and people making trades and different things. But I just really feel like, you know, 12 offensive players in the first round is not a lot. I mean, you're talking of a ratio of 20 to 12. And I was fairly confident that I think that there will be, and I know that some of your mock drafts, you had some of these offensive tackles, you know, some of the guys from Baylor kind of slipping in the bottom of the first round. Do you still have that, or what was the reasoning for you to go over? Because you risked, I want to say you put 22 points on this. I put 23. We both seem to be pretty confident on this one. It'll be over 11.5 offensive players in the first round.
Well, yeah, and you look at it, and there's going to be a minimum 6 offensive linemen alone, 4 tackles and 2 guards, and maybe a 7th if Derek Sherrod sneaks in there. You got 2 guaranteed wide receivers. I think Mark Ingram's going to be a first-round pick. You're going to have at minimum 2 quarterbacks and maybe 3, 4, 5. That wouldn't shock me at all. So, yeah, I think it's pretty easily going to go over that amount. And I think my final mock, I'm on the low end of that. I think I'm at 12 in my final mock, so maybe it's a little conservative, but I'm not going to get all surprised if at least 1 or 2 more quarterbacks sneak in there and bump it up even further.
Now, Joe, you went over on this, but not very confident, only risking 2 points. What was the reason behind that?
The reason behind it is this terrible rigmarole that we're stuck in here with the current labor situation. But I did go over for the simple fact that I finally came up with my mock here, and I'm looking, I just counted 13 offensive players, so it's still, though, there's some fringe guys, and while people say, yeah, Soldier, Karimi, Costanzo, they're first rounders, I'm not so sure. honestly, these are guys that are going to get knocked down to the bottom. And while I think Kyle Rudolph may fit into the first-round conversation, maybe he doesn't. And in which case, this is such a good defensive line class and just some premium cornerbacks available and all